So I lived very close to the studio. I lived in Studio City, and there was a tennis, Marc before I played tennis at the Studio City tennis, and Richard. I went to play tennis a day or so after a couple of the meetings, and I got a call. It's about they're going to make you an offer. I'm like, nail it. I think I aced a couple people on the tennis court that day. So, end of the story, as we now know, as we sit here today, is I got the partner ring, and I was happy for that, and I was happy for Jane, and she and I became friends. But it's kind of one of those, acting's a weird deal. My run of show on V was trippy because, like I said, I lived very near the studio. There was a tennis court where I was playing tennis a lot, and I could literally, they tell me, we're going to get you sometime this afternoon, we're not sure, we're going to start sprinkling red dust maybe around 3 o'clock, I don't know. And I'd go play tennis, and I'd get the call, and then I could pop over and do it. So it was a really fun job to do, and it went on for a long time, even though I just showed up sporadically, but it was really close to home. So it was kind of like, shooting a show in your backyard. You just kind of waited until they were ready for you, but it was a lot of fun. Anyway, that's my story about that.
Frank, did you get a chance to answer that question?
You answered it for Marc.
I was just kind of wondering why Greta didn't think I played tennis.
Well, I've seen these guys play.
The red dust thing?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a trip.
Quick interjection. I was sure that at this stage down the road from that we would have some weird disease.
Oh, yeah,
Didn't
yeah.
you think that?
Well, yeah, they came to you and they said, okay, we're doing the red dust thing. And it was flocking.
Oh, yeah.
It was flocking.
And we were breathing it.
Yeah, well, the disclaimer was, it's going to look great, guys. Don't breathe it. It'll kill you. So, I mean, it was a really strange experience. And poor Andy Prime had like a bucket of it 4 times to go in. Andy's still alive, isn't he?
Oh my God, Andy Prime's alive.
That was a joke.
When you talk about Andy Prime, he's living in a little town outside of Asheville, North Carolina, amongst all his friends and relatives. Andy and I we did 65 years ago. Was it 65? Something like 63 maybe. I met Andy, we did a road show of Mr. Roberts. We had Mr. Roberts. Yeah, we did a road show. As a matter of fact, we came through here. We played like a Warwick theater and blah. Anyway, Andy, God bless him, he got us great. He replaced all 4 or 5 of us came out of that and eventually ended up with a series or whatever. We were blessed. And he replaced Tony Perkins on Broadway in Look Home with Angel. And what they did, they had Ed Begley on a wonderful actress. So the 3 of them, when the 3 leads that originated the part on Broadway, when they left, they had the other 3 come in, and who had the opportunity of working together. So, and they weren't paying Andy any money. And the agent said, you can't do that. He said, bullshit. He said, I'm going to do this part. I have to do this part. He did. People saw him. I think it was MCA or whatever, they owned Universal. And that was the beginning of his career. When he came out to California, he continued in the theater. He did Long Day's Journey into Night with Charlton Heston. Andy was always doing theater and film. And that's the way it used to be with actors. It doesn't make any difference where you do the play, Kalamazoo, New York, whatever. You take the vow of poverty and you do a play. And it's good for this muscle up here. But I could never do 8 performances anymore. I don't mind to do an equity every show, 3 or 4 nights. It takes, you don't realize, a tremendous amount of energy. Tremendous amount of energy. And Frank, right here, my favorite part of all that I ever played, Frank produced it. I played Willie Loman, Death of a Salesman. And it was remarkable. We had a remarkable cast, and such a gift you gave to me, Frank. God bless you, and I want to thank you so much for you and the lovely Shannon. And it was wonderful. Thank you.
Hey, Marc, just wanted to know, what was it like working with Michael Ironside?
Well, that was funny. Michael Ironside brought a real
kind of a dark weight to the show. And I have to say that it was always a challenge when Michael and I were on together, and we were on together a lot, because we were sort of the yin and yang of the storyline. We both were on one hand moving toward what we hoped was the salvation of all mankind against evil and all that sort of stuff. But on the other hand, we also we rubbed up against each other and were sort of, we had a lot of friction. And I have to say that that was the way it was off camera as well, is that we did not get along very well together. And I found him to be difficult to work with, and I think he found me to be just as difficult in return. I think in that way, art and life really kind of contributed to the sort of what you have to call, what's called, generally speaking, is called the electricity in the performance. Because we really did have to accommodate each other each time we were in each other's presence. And it's taken me a long time to try to figure out how to express that in a civilized manner. But you know, there are, not all of what is called art or even entertainment is produced in a la-la land experience. Some of it is produced under great stress and contention. And in many days and in many ways, we were stressed and contentious with one another. And out of that, I think, came some very good work and came some very good resultant product in terms of communicating with the audience and making the audience feel the sincerity, for want of another word, the sincerity of the moment. And I ran into Michael later, just in one of the local stores, and we still are civil. That's my story.
That's good to know.
Well, it's kind of a question for Marc. I think one of the most entertaining segments of V, actually V, the final battle, was that wonderful fight that you and Michael staged down in San Pedro. That was a kick-ass fight.
I staged that fight, and I took charge of that fight because I was on the show before Michael, and as Frank pointed out, I was known for being a very physical actor anyway, and you know, we were young and having fun, and we got to do whatever we wanted to on the set. It was like going to an adult playground every day. You could blow up cars and slide them around and fall off of buildings and have fights and tussle around. It's like being a big kid with a more serious kind of purpose to it. So I staged that fight essentially on the truck. And the thing about that was that the night before we did this fight in that scene, another actor with whom I was working, and again, I'm doing all my own, I'm not doing all my own stunts, I'm doing what actors call doing all your own stunts, means that you do everything that you're capable of doing and anything that actually puts your life in danger. Then the producer says, no, you can't, this guy's doing it, and they put it in the stunt. The night before that, I had worked with an actor who shall remain nameless. Great big guy. And all he had to do was a simple maneuver, and then I was going to do the rest of the stunt, which made it look like he was enormously powerful, and kicked me across the room. But when they said action, the adrenaline pumped through him, and he forgot what he was doing, held me down, and broke 3 of my ribs. Yeah. And so the next day was when we had to do that fight. Yeah. And so that involved a lot of falling and rolling and tumbling and hitting and struggling and this and this and this and this and this. So I remember that fight quite well for those reasons.
You know what Marc says, I had the good fortune. I had worked with a wonderful woman, Josie Allen, at the Berkshire Theatre Festival. And I came into the audition for Lee J. Cobb role in the theater production of Ronald Walton. They were going to do it in Cleveland, then it was going to go to the Kennedy Center. I had a couple of auditions and I got the part. And There was a guy that would come in twice a week, and they know him, he's a great combat coach, Barry. I wish I could remember, he was so fabulous. But the main thing you learn when you're working with a sword, or you're working with a fist, or you're working with a chain or a hook, is something they call eyes. Because people say, oh, I got into it. That's how people get hurt. Oh, I just felt the moment. That's bullshit. Felt the moment. And like in that fight, when it started, you saw the grappling hooks. We fought with the real ones, real grappling hooks. Then we threw each other into the bale stuff, and we dropped them. We picked up the rubber ones. Then we continued the fight, dropped it, I pushed him. Then I grabbed a chain, and I started whirling and whirling, going after him with this chain. And all the time, then we had the fight that we stayed. All this time, we gave each other permission and it gave you the opportunity of knowing we were set. You have to take yourself from inside the park to consciously being there unless you've done this fight 40,000 times so that you don't hurt that person or that person doesn't hurt you. And it'll come off. A lot of people just say, oh, I got into the moment. Bullshit. Because a lot of people get hurt on stage that way. Anyway, I know exactly what he said. These fight things, you see a lot of them. And some of these guys that do these combat guys are just remarkable. You know, another guy that's terrific, that's right around too, is Steve Rankin. Steve Rankin is another guy. I used to play with a group called the Improvised Blues Band. I played the Gut Bucket. And it was a bunch of us from Star Trek. And we toured around the world. There are CDs of it. There anyway, that's another story. But that is a very important thing, the ballet. Also movement. You'll see a lot of actors that have had a lot of television, film experience. And when they come on stage to do a scene, the only thing you recognize is the head because they don't bring the body of the character out on the stage with them. They're just used to these close-ups. So they don't realize that they have a body that goes with that. And then they whisper. They've never learned how to use the diaphragmatic situation. Actors and markets. Also, it's very physical. You have to train. You have to keep fit. You have to learn things. You have to keep your eye and your mind of what you're doing. And then there was the Boleslavsky, one of those old teachers, said, once you do all of that, you get all ready. He says, then you go on stage, you tell them to drop the net, you walk out, and you forget everything. Just do the part. But the preparation for all of us in the theater, the preparation for an orchestra, the preparation for athletes that goes on for years, it's remarkable the discipline that goes into that.
But Richard,
I'm through.
But Richard, I gotta talk fire. Can I tell the girls' story here?
Absolutely.
So the fight scenes, and I know
Yeah.
everybody's had that happen, so I'll make this brief, but per what we're talking about. I'm in Korea. I'm shooting a movie. I'm there for 7 months. It's a movie called Soldiers of Innocence. It only showed in Korea. I don't even think you can see it here. I'm playing a nun. I've got the long nun's habit on. I'm in Korea. All of the technicians, all of the crew are Korean. And I'm then married to a guy who's over there making sure I'm okay and safe. And there's a scene where everything blows up around me. And he walks around to all of the stunt guys. And by the way, the head stunt guy was a guy called Fingers, because the only guy in Korea who did stunts that had all his fingers left. They'd all blown their hands off. So should give you an idea of where I'm going with this. So the scene is about to happen, stuff's gonna happen. My husband walks around and goes, now there's no gasoline, right? Because we'd seen the stunt guy with a cigarette hanging out his mouth, running across the field with a bag of gasoline. He goes, no gasoline, no gasoline, no gasoline. So I'm in the scene, thing goes off, the next thing you know, my nun's habit's on fire. They pat me down, they put me out, and my husband says, well, I thought you said no gasoline, no gasoline. They go, no gasoline, diesel fuel, diesel fuel.
Frank, I was wondering if I could ask you a question about your character. You know, when creating the character of Marc, did you ever give any idea of like what his motivation was and why he was where he was? I mean, you know, obviously helping out the resistance and going against his own people.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the script realized, thought I was yeah, script and you realize that your character is there for a specific function, what is that? What is the objective? What is he going for? Well, you know, we've all seen it, we all know what we're talking about here. Martin was that entity in the show that, you know, harking back to the French Renaissance, when there, excuse me, Resistance, or Renaissance, Resistance. And he was that brave soul that realized that what his people were doing, very much like President Trump realizes that he's got people in his cabinet that are turncoats as well, I guess, too. We're kind of hearkening back to that. Anyway, he just did not believe in the cause that was put before his people, and that motivated him to a point of the fear of death. And he was constantly, I realized going in that I had to somehow, without being over the top, and I'm afraid that some of the times I was, that he was going to be found out and killed. And there is that great scene between Marc and Jane and I where Martin is discovered. He turns me in. Donovan turned him in. Someone posted, oopsie, it's Martin. And there was that was the through line for my characters, that I was going to be discovered and found out. And death would have been an absolute certainty. So with that in mind, that's how I approached Martin. He was not, you know, I mean, I wasn't running around fearful, but there was that underlying urgency that we needed to get this message out quickly and move on, because it's pretty dangerous what I'm doing. Most of my work was done with Marc. A few scenes with Jane, but most of it was with Marc, which was a huge delight for me, because he's a wonderful actor, very generous, he's always there, he's just always available. And it made my work really, really easy and most enjoyable.
That's not how I remember it, but that's okay. That's okay. I remember myself as being enormously difficult and you being extremely generous, but
well, there was that too.
The Martin personality, I think the thing that struck me in the playing of it was that there were the hardliners who followed the code because they believed in the code. And then there were the people who were wearing the uniform, but considered morality as well as duty, and considered their duty to morality as strong as their duty to duty. And that was the construction of Frank's character, was to carry that message forward. Because remember, when V first began, it was a sorry guys, a disquisition on the dangers of fascism and creeping fascism, and of us turning into an Orwellian state, either from without or from within, and that people who were designated to have positions of responsibility in that Orwellian state still had a choice to make, and that all of us should remember that in our own personal lives, because what is art or entertainment but a reflection and entertainment, and hopefully, if it's worthwhile, also somewhat of an instruction without getting too heavy-handed about it.
Hey, Richard, I wanted to ask you about, I guess, your career. You played in V, you played Spring Commander John, essentially an admiral. In Star Trek Voyager, you played Admiral Paris. In Sequest, you played Admiral Noyce. And in Quantum Leap, you played Captain Galaxy. Why did you go to the Navy? Why didn't you go in the Navy? It seems like you're pretty good as a military officer.
I was a West Point appointee.
Oh, I knew it.
And I had my letter from, I was Joe Gallison and myself. Joe did so well, Joe Gallison, we were both the military drill, all this, all that, we got Colonel Driscoll, all this, all that. And it suited me, I felt at that time. And we got our letters and we got this, we had to get, I got mine from Salt and Salt. He got his, had a letter, blah, 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 blah. Well, I failed the physical. Didn't make it. Joe did. Joe made it. And Joe was only in school for less than a year, heard it back. And the next thing I ever heard from Joe, like, who knows how many years later, he ended up being on the like Days of Our Lives for 20 years. And I didn't even know he was an actor. Because I never watched it. I met him at one of those Mirrors events, playing golf, and I said, what's Joe Gallison doing up here? I said, he's on Days of Our Lives. I said, oh, Jesus. So the guy, he says, oh, Dick, yeah. He said, oh, hey, yeah, no, I'll get you a copy of the yearbook of this and that. He went to Northeastern, Northwestern, not Northwestern. And I said, well, how did you start? What did he say? He became a member of the silver screen players at Northeastern. I'm going to have to tell you some of the names of these places that, when you're a kid, that you work at doing these things. But I just, it's not as though my dad, I lost my dad because of World War II. But in my time of life, at my age, at that time, there was a whole different sense, a whole different rhythm going on in America. A whole different reason. Whatever, what you wanted to do there. We didn't deal with television. We were kind of far away. Nobody could get to us, this and that. And you didn't feel you were going to go out and really hurt anybody. And you were naive. We were all naive. What the hell did we know? It was just, the military seemed like a good thing. And finally, when I did get in, I didn't do too badly. But, then all of a sudden you realize, it was all land, it was all oil, it was all people, money, too many people. Well, I won't go on and on. But I always had, I don't know, there was a discipline about me. I had a pretty good frame at that time. I could shoot pretty good, and I didn't mind being ordered around or have things like that. That's why. It got me into a little trouble, though. Like with some directors, I had a lot of fights with directors. And also casting directors. I had some very bad times. It got very vocal and very vulgar at certain times. And it's amazing how all those moment things, I would come back to a callback or something, and I would use terrible language, this god-awful language. And I said, well, that's all right. But it's funny, but when I did it, that's what they wanted. Well, I'll give you for an instance. Then I'll shut up. There's this show that took place in Boston. You probably know Isles, somebody in Isles. Two women, they're wonderful women. Yeah, I went in for that. And they wanted a whitey bulger kind of guy. And I went in. And there's this great gal in the casting director, all the wonderful people. And I said, well, this play takes place in Southie. That's the South Boston. I said, well, I said, live there and this and that and so forth and so on. I said, you want a Boston accent, don't you? She said, oh, no, we don't want that. We want it. She said, because everyone would be coming in with a different kind of Boston accent. I said, oh. I said, okay. And I said, this takes place, and you want this kind of tough guy, this takes place in Southie? And I was brought up, I said, well, I was brought up in the south end of Boston. And we always looked at Southeast like a bunch of pussies. And I said, the men are brought up in the South End, not a bunch of pussies like from South Boston. So they hear, well, this is in an audition, and they're kind of looking at me. So they said, would you read that paragraph there? So I read the paragraph. They read the paragraph. And this one casting guy leaned forward, and he said, would you read that paragraph to me again and make me cry? Would you read that paragraph to me and make me cry? Now, I'm only saying that because this has happened to all of us. When you're in that room, the best thing to do when you're in that room to get a job, as soon as you're done, is get your ass out of there. Because you leave something in the air, good, bad, and different. You leave it. And that's left in that room. If you start being friendly with these people and this and this and this and that, it's dead. You kill your part. You kill your part. Go in half being the character. I mean, the audition, 2 minutes in a room could make a difference for your entire life of getting a series or not getting a series or just getting a job. And I put myself out of a lot of jobs like that because I couldn't censor myself. I did. And who knows? And why things happen, and so forth and so on. But I have a lot of people to thank for putting up with my bullshit. You know, I play all these. They used to call me when I started doing comedies, he has boyish charm. You know, oh, I didn't know you could play heavies. I did China Syndrome. Oh, I didn't know you could be a lead guy like that. They forget. We are actors. That's our job. So, you know, anytime you want us to jump through a hoop and you want to pay the right kind of money, here we are, folks.
You know, Richard is, he looks like he's 43, but he really isn't. He's a little older than 43.
85.
And 85, he just said. And this is the time, right. And when you see a man like this, and I mean a man, lean forward and give of himself some of the pathos in his life early, a little taste of that, something of anger, something of disaffection, something of determination, something of pride, and something of perseverance and strength. There's something to learn just by being in his presence. And for those of us who are in the profession with him, we feel very honored by that. And we look to people like this as our mentors and as our idols. So,
And you know, Marc, further to that, and that's just such a great sentiment and so true. I don't know how many of you in the audience had, and you're here because you're V fans. One of the things I've discovered in my little Lorraine piece of the whole V story is that there are fans out there that have actually become, I'm going to call them friends of mine, people who have shared with me how this series helped them at times in their life, the escaping into the world of V. And for me, and Marc, you just remind me of this, and Richard, for me, the privilege of being on this stage and being involved in this community is that when you meet someone who tells you that in their adolescence, and I'll have to admit, I hate the part that they tell me they were like 12 when they saw me. We won't go there. Don't ever remind actors about how old you were. Oh, I was only 10 years old. I don't want to know that. But when they tell you that in their childhood, the only escape they had from abusive relationships, from horrendous childhood situations, was when they would go in the room and turn on that TV and watch the show. That's when, as an actor, not just for someone appreciating your creativity, but appreciating just how you've affected their life on a very deep and personal level, that it becomes really a privilege to be involved in something like this. So I just personally want to thank you guys for being the kind of people you are, and because you, as actors touch you in roles that they play, you conversely touch actors' lives, and that's a huge gift to us.
I've been taking up my use of microphone time, I know, my share more maybe. But I'd like to also put a yin to that yang, or a yang to that yin, and say that the same thing is true when we're here in an event like this, and we get to meet families or representatives of families who come to us and say, you know, I used to watch that with my mother, I used to watch it with my father, or my brothers, and my sisters, and you think, what a blessing that is for us, that somehow we were at that moment, we were the family hearth. And people gathered around and watched the show, and they all sat, and they enjoyed this, and they looked forward to it until next week, and then they would talk about it, and they would have fun in some way of interacting with each other. And really, in fact, that was the first, here I go again, that was one of the, I stepped on the cord and pitched myself into the front row. That would have been a stunt. I remember that I didn't really, the first time that I ever went to a convention, I didn't get it. I mean, it's a pretty shocking thing the first time you come to this and you just are with people in a raw state and they look to you and you're supposed to represent something to them. And it really comes, you really come up against it hard. And it didn't occur to me until almost to the end of that convention what I was really doing there. And this is what we're really doing here. This is it. And when we get down to talking like this, and when we get down to saying, what is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of all of this? Then we're really here. And then we're all in one family, and then we're all in one group, and then we all have a meaning for one another that makes us happy and rich, and enriched by it all. And that's really what we're supposed to be all doing here. So that's kind of cool. It's nice to reach that level.
That was awesome, Mark. It reminds me of the first convention I did. It was right after the first 4-hour miniseries aired. I don't know how it happened, but Jane Badler and I ended up down at the Marriott around LAX.
It's because you were both drunk.
Could be. I was drinking in those days. 25 years clean and sober, folks. So, yeah, Jane and I had never done anything like this. We were actors and we got these jobs, and so we did the jobs and we went to this convention. Like I said, I have no idea how I got there and Mark didn't, but anyway, it was Jane and myself. And we walked into this room about this size, and I've never seen anything like it in my life. People dressed like me with little weird drapes on. It was odd, and Jane and I just looked at each other and smiled, and we kind of had a knowing look between each other, like, man, this is wild and special. So this is what it's all about, huh? That we really, our work touched people that much. And Mark was hearkening at the synergy that takes place now, almost 35 years from the original airing, that it has become a family. I mean, I'm getting posts constantly. Hi, Charlie and Adina. From people who have embraced this, that the creativity that's in this room is awesome. These costumes are incredible. The replication of the costume and the spot-on eye for detail is really wonderful, and that has taken its own level of creativity. What we did was ours, and now you're doing yours, and the fact that you guys are here means you have childlike imaginations, which must be applauded, because there needs to be more of that on planet Earth, especially today. So I, again, along with Mark and Richard and Greta, we thank you so much for being who you are and keeping this thing going.
I want to mention that
They shut you off.
You are a great guy. Anyway, I just want to, that's the CTV, the Connecticut V group, and it's led by Charles Monstead. There you go, Charles. Great. But unfortunately, we come to the end of the panel, but since it's my panel and I'm hosting, I get to ask you a particular fan question. I want to get V's there. I wanted to leave V just real quickly and ask a question of Beastmaster. And I was wondering if maybe you could reflect a little bit, because that's an awesome movie, and I just want to hear you talk about it.
Don't take your shirt off.
Okay, I'll be quick. You guys don't have to stay for this. You can go. No kidding. If they didn't ask me, I would walk out if it was yours. Go ahead. Yeah, sure. Why not? Good to know each other. We hang. It's all good. Okay. What did I tell you about V? Beastmaster, that's what it was. Thank you. Yeah, okay, Beastmaster. It was the experience of a lifetime. This is what Hollywood is like. I can do that one. I'll do this story. And I don't mean by any means to put a hackneyed tint on it, that this is, or taint on it, that this is what Hollywood is like. One day you're playing tennis, and the next day you're the idol of millions, tens of millions of people, chasing bad guys and good guys across the universe of imagination. Another day you are running a theater, and if you're not running a theater, then lo and behold, you're in the same position. Suddenly you'll be remembered forever for this character. Or you're a man who was in the army, and then the next thing you know, everybody has seen you everywhere in every movie, and you're still here, and you're still nailing it every day. And that's what that's like. And one day you're walking along the street, and the next day you're the Beastmaster from there on out, and you're remembered for the extraordinary experience of being able to work with a tiger that changed your life, and with human beings that became a part of your family for the rest of your life. And the story of the Beastmaster is the story of all of us here, and the story of all of us here is the story of all of us here. And so that's that.
Excellent, excellent. Well, these gentlemen and lovely lady will be here for the remainder of the weekend, so you can come on downstairs and say hello to them. I want to thank you all very much for coming. You made it the easiest panel because I barely said anything. It was good.